Another night of Torah. Gewalt. Rav Shon, you look better. Baruch Hashem. Refuah Shalema.
I feel much better.
Baruch Hashem. Nice to see you healthier.
What is his name? I told him to call him. Morris.
Where is he? Efo?
He called me today. We're going to have...
Ay. Tzichim lilmod Torah, no? Yoimi.
Morris.
Not about the dog.
Come here. Pull over a chair. Here. Get past him a Gemara. Makkos, we're up to Tezayin Amud Beis. Okay. Zug the Heilige Gemara. Va'oichel nevelis a treifis shkotzim or amasim. Right? What do we have in the Mishnah? Then he gets Malchus. Tezayin, Amud Beis, by the two dots. Omar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Hayman da'ochel benisa de bekarva. Somebody eats a worm from a cabbage. It's a cabbage worm. A cabbage worm. Yeah? Is the halacha is malkinan lei. You get malchus. Mushum sheretz hashoyretz ala oretz. Because it's a insect. It's a creepy crawly insect.
By the two dots.
Hahud da'achal benisa de bekarva. There was a certain person who ate a cabbage worm. V'nagd Rav Yehuda gave him malchus. It's by the two dots on Tezayin Amud Beis. Okay, so over here, it's very interesting. Number one, what's the chiddush? Yeah, if you eat a worm, a cabbage worm, you get malchus. Avada, you get malchus. What's the chiddush by a cabbage worm why shouldn't you get malchus? So the Chachamim explain.
No parash.
It's like those.
Because
the old idea about apples, that worms that were. It's called spontaneous generation.
Spontaneous generation, which means it appears in the.
It doesn't come from the apple.
It doesn't come from the ground. It comes from. It's born inside the vegetable, and therefore the Torah says you're chayiv on sheretz, hashoyretz, al haaretz. So the chiddush is this is not really called al haaretz because it was born inside the cabbage. So what's taka the pshat? Why do you get malchus if it's not al haaretz, if it's born inside the cabbage? And the answer is because the cabbage was mechuber lakarka. That's also called al haaretz because mechuber lakarka. Now the Gemara says Rav Yehuda gave him malchus. V'nagd Rav Yehuda, a guy ate the cabbage worm, gave him malchus. Now we know you can't administer lashes. You can't give him malchus unless you're a bezdin of smuchim. Ooh, bezdin of smuchim, right? Was only in Eretz Yisrael. In Bavel, we had in the beginning of Sanhedrin. They weren't soimich dayanim in Bavel to administer malchus or any other knossos, right? So how did Rav Yehuda give him malchus? Teretz is nagdei is a lashon of the Rabbanan to give malchus. He didn't give him 39 lashes the way he's supposed to give him minat Torah because he doesn't have the koyach. Not makas mardus. Yes. So the Gemara weiter. Omer Abaye, ochel patisa. The one who eats a patisa. What's a patisa? Yeah, loikarba. It's a type of insect. You get 4 times malchus. 4 times 39. Why 4 times 39? Because first of all, you're over on 2 general lavim of shratzim, right? 2 general lavim. One second. Number one, why do you get 4? We're trying to break it down. Why do you get 4 times malchus? Number one is because you have 2 general lavim on all shratzim, so that you get for those two of those. And number 2, yeah. I understand. I know. But so Rashi explains. Read the whole Rashi. Loikarba shnei lavin ksuvin b'sheretz hamayim. Right, there are 2 lavim that are specific to sheretz hamayim, and then there are also 2 lavim that are sheretz stam, klolius. So you have 4 times 39. 4 lavim, you get 4. Loikarba. What about namala? If a guy eats an ant,
5.
Loki Chamish, he gets 5 times malchus. 5 times 39. Why 5 times 39? Again, because you have 2 general lavim of shratzim, plus 3 specific lavim of shratzim ala aretz. So I don't know much math, but 2 plus 3 is 4. I'm just kidding. 5. No other guys. Because of shratzim ala aretz. Tira. What about a tira? What's a tira? A hornet? It's a bee?
Hornet.
What's a hornet? A hornet is like a type of bee?
It's a
type of bee.
It's a flying. It's like a wasp. The ichor is that.
Should I tell my bee story again, or should I already?
We're good.
It's like a bee, but it's a gangster.
Charlotte Hornets! Oh, wow!
Listen, it's like
This guy's a huge basketball fan.
Listen, it's like a bee.
Do you know, he pulled himself away from the Clippers game right now.
Big
We have to
Messiah's
honor him.
Nefesh, I was just going to say. Big Messiah's Nefesh to be a
Big
playoff.
Messiah's Nefesh. We're middle, yeah. We don't want to say this. Ooh! Haley Morris is here.
Rebbe, it's like a bee, but it's a gangster.
It's a gangster. It's a gangster bee. Okay. Tira like a shesh. He gets 6. Why 6? 2 because of the general lavim of shiratzim stam. Another 3 because sheretz haaretz, and an additional 1 because sheretz ha'oif. Tzira is supposed to be both, I guess, because it can crawl on the ground. It can also fly. So you have the 3 of the ground and 1 of the oif, and 2 general. So 2 plus 3 plus 1 is 6. Okay, that's that. Omar Ravachoy. Hamashas Nekov. If somebody holds back his bodily functions, yeah?
This is specifically the difference between the cavum and the bowels of the body.
We'll see. It's halachically different. Very good. We have a doctor in the house. The doctor is going to give some commentary on this Gemara. Hamashas Nekaviv Oiver Mishum Lo Teshaktu. Now, it appears to be that according to most Achroinim, even what's Shainim, this is not a Da'iraisa. It's not a Al Teshaktu min HaTorah. This is Midrabanan. But he's over, nonetheless, he's over Midrabanan about the Shaktu if you hold yourself back from going to the bathroom. Now, by the way, I just want to read you quickly the halachas. Well, once we mentioned this, right? It's a Mishnah Berurah. It's a halacha Shulchan Aruch. Tzadi Beis, Simon Tzadi Beis, Nerechayim. Huh?
I should put up the Mishnah Berurah.
Yeah. Hayitzorich lenekava. A person has to go to the bathroom. First halacha in Tzadi Beis. Al yispalo, do not daven. If you daven when you have to go to the bathroom, then tefillah te'eva. By the way, my namesake, R Yoel Teitelbaum, the Satmar Rebbe, would daven much later in the day because he would always make sure that he was completely clear. Naki. That's why he davened. He held that even if you're going to be over zman tefillah, better to have a clean guf, a guf naki, that to daven if you have to go to the bathroom. When they did surgery on Rabbi Yoelish, right, he passed away at 92, 93, did surgery, he was much older. They opened his and they saw it was as clean as a child's intestines because he made sure that every time he davened, he was completely clean. Now, by the way, but if a person davens anyway, he has to go. A lot of times, like I don't want to say, I have the internal debate, right? I don't want to take off my tefillin and put it back on. So I'm going to daven, and then I'll take it off for good, I don't have to put it back on. But the halach is that tefillah te'eva, and if you take a daven and you have to go, you have to daven again. Tzarech lachzer l'spala. Yeah, but hani mili Shulchan Aruch. I'm just reading Shulchan Aruch. She'enu yochel lahamer atzmi shiur hilach parsa. It's only Mishmur says that 72 minutes. That if you can hold yourself back from 72 minutes, you can still hold it in. That's b'diavad. You're still yoytze, right? If you can still hold it in yoytze b'diavad, like a tchila, but tchila not.
72 additional minutes after?
Yeah, from the time you have to go, you can still hold it in 72 minutes and you daven, then the tefillah is okay. Like a tchila, you shouldn't do it. Here he has a whole shayla. Let's say guy's a shlich tzibur, and it comes to Hoicha Shemin Esrei, and now he feels like, I gotta go. Should he stay by the Yomud, kavod abrius, right? He's got to finish the job, or should he give it over to somebody else? And they say if you can hold it in 72 minutes, even like a tchila, stay by the Yomud. You would think not, but the halacha says stay by the Yomud, kavod abrius. Okay, a lot of rate exactly in all these halachas.
It's a big problem. The older people, it's very, very difficult.
Common. Yeah. Yeah.
With older people.
Right.
But the Ktanim is a lot.
So, Ktanim here. Right. Ktanim ain't tzarch lachzer l'spala. Right. Ktanim is a machlokes achronim and we're makel by the bladder issues.
Gdolim is a big time. According to Kabbalah, it's a big time because התורה זה נקרא הבירור. אז ברגע שמתברר כבר, הבירור מתברר, אתה לא יכול להכניס לעצמך עוד אוכל או שום דבר, כי גם תפילה זה בירור. הבירור הזה עוד לא היה בירור.
All right, for the Kabbalistic view, stay after Ma'ariv. Reb Shola is going to give us a Kabbalistic shiur. Al pi Kabbalah. Hold that thought. I do want to tell you, what?
I'll give you a booklet about it afterwards too.
Oh yeah, okay. The doctor's a lot to talk about. There's going to be the medical view and the Kabbalistic view. We have a whole symposium. I just do want to say that Bar Halacha says why 72 minutes? Because he says once you can't hold it in within 72 minutes, then we assume, brings in the Rashba, we assume that the food turned already into tzoya. Right? In your body, it's not food. It's already been completely processed and it's ready to go. So you shouldn't be davening. It lacks respect, honor, if you're davening with tzoya in your body. Okay. Person is drinking from karna de umna, a bloodletter's tube, right? They used to believe that bloodletting is healthy. And so they would go to the doctor.
It's still occasionally useful.
Yeah, it's not as common as the olden days. I think that they believed that you had a headache, they bloodlet you, like whatever you had.
Bankers. You know what bankers are?
No.
Bankers are leeches.
Uh-huh.
They used to leech.
Take blood out.
They still do that in the Orient.
Yeah.
They still they put these little animals that leach out
Uh-huh.
blood.
Wow, interesting.
Mosquitoes.
Interesting. Yeah. Ooh, wow.
It's like a snail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So also, if you drink from that cup, you're over Mishum Bal Tishaktu. Okay, weiter. Omer Rava Baravuna, Risik Tishin Amolim. One who mashes 9 ants. Takes 9 ants, he mashes them up. Vehevi Echad Chai, and he brings a live ant. Veshliman Lekazayas. And you mix it all up, and you eat the live ant in addition to the 9 mashed ants. And now you have a kazayas between all of them as well. So you have a birya shlema, you have a complete whole creature, which is 1 ant, and together with the other 9 mashed ants, you have a kazayas of nevela. So the Gemara says, loy kashesh. So now you're liable to 6 separate lash penalties, malchus. Chamish mishem bria, right? 5 of them is kasheretz asheretz ala aretz, right? 2 general and 3 specific kasheretz asheretz ala aretz, we said earlier. Ve'echad mishem kazayis nevela, an additional one, because the kazayis nevela, between the live ant together with the 9 mashed ants, you have a kazayis, and therefore it's interesting because Rashi here says kazayis nevela shekshaboyloi humeis umitztaref lekazayis nevela. Why is the live ant mitztaref to the kazayis nevela? Because once you swallow it, that ant dies. So now you have a whole. You have a whole.
I think that's why the matir.
It sounds like you have to eat it when it's alive, and once you swallow it, that's when it dies. It's very interesting, Rashi, like very difficult. Rabbi Akiva Eiger points out. Rashi sounds like you take the live ant into your mouth, together with the 9 mashed ants. Okay, it's very graphic. I once went to a museum. I saw they have like on sticks. Certain cultures they eat literally like. Where did you see this? Thailand. They roast.
Wuhan.
Wuhan.
Beetles.
Yeah, beetles, roasted beetles for $6, $6.99. Get a roasted beetle and a cockroaches. Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah.
Don't summer rockets like eat like locusts?
No Moroccan, Yemenite.
Yemenite?
Yeah, Jews?
Yes.
Oh, there's certain chagavim. Certain chagavim are kosher. Yeah, certain chagavim are kosher.
It's a kosher cricket.
Yeah, they're pretty nice.
Kosher cricket, yeah, kosher grasshopper.
In the restaurant, they serve it.
Yeah, which restaurant?
Oh, the grasshopper in the window.
Post it on the chat after Daf, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Vada. Yeah,
That's what Chagavim meant.
chagavim kosher. He wanted to examine a kosher cricket on his windowsill. Yeah, jumps on the window. Famous Maisa. Yeah, Rocky wants me to tell the story for that. Yeah. So hold on. So so it sounds like Rashi says in order to be over on birya, this is very interesting. You have to eat it. You can only be over on an ant 5 lavim if you eat it when it's alive. And it's mitztaref to the nevela, to the kazayis nevela, once you swallow, because that's when it dies. So they ask, why does Rashi have to say, it's like it's inconsistent with other Gemaras, that you ate the ant, the whole creature, while it was still alive? Rashi makes a point of saying it only dies once you swallow it. It sounds like it has to be eaten, it has to be put into your mouth when it's alive. Only then are you chayav 5 lavin. You know, it sounds like from other sugyas that even if it's mace, even if a creature is mace, you still have the isser of birya. Rashi sounds like the isser of birya is only if it's alive. And they all ask the kasha. I saw some want to say that it's only by an ant that Rashi says it, because scientifically, as soon as an ant dies, the legs start disintegrating. Now, I asked ChatGPT immediately. I saw it in one of the chronim. I was like, ChatGPT, is this true? Now, ChatGPT is not always 1,000%, but it says no, it's actually not true. It's a misunderstanding. I guess this Achron, whoever it was, had a misunderstanding, because what happens is the muscles relax as soon as the ant dies. And as soon as the muscles relax, then the leg curls up and you don't see the leg. It just like it curls up. So it looks like it misses a leg. It's missing a leg right away. So Rashi says you have to put it in your mouth while it's still alive, because this Achron assumed, Because if it's dead, it's not a birya anymore because it's missing one of the legs. So you can't be chayiv 5 lavan on that. That's how this Achron understood it, but it's not scientifically correct. The Aruch LaNer says a different reason why by an ant, Rashi insists that you only chayiv 5 lavan if you put it into your mouth when it's still alive. You know why? Because it says, one of the Yisurim is, sheretz hashoyretz al ha'aretz. It has to be sheretz hashoyretz al ha'aretz. Once it's dead, it's not shoyretz al ha'aretz anymore. So it has to be sheretz al ha'aretz, and therefore to be over 5 lavin, it has to be alive.
Because it's shoretz.
That's correct. That's right. Yeah, that's Aruch LaNer. Aruch LaNer says that.
9 ants is
Yeah.
not.
Very good view.
10 ants is not excited.
Huh? 10.
It could be the army ants.
Big ants, yeah.
Ah, very good. Yeah, depends what kind of ants. Yeah. Interesting. So many different.
Each one is the size of
By the way, one of my kids over here, right here, he has a special talent. He'll notice every ant on the floor. He'll notice every creature. He walks. Certain people like that. They'll notice like the impossible. They have an eye for it. Yeah. Very good.
Are you afraid of ants?
What? He loves them. No, he picks their legs apart. He's the guy.
No way.
Okay, fine.
What about spiders? You like spiders too?
He likes all creatures that he can pick apart. Okay, fine. Zug the Eilig Yomar weiter. Rava Omar Reb Yochanan Afilu Shnayim V'hu. Oh, here we go with size. He says you don't need 9, even 2 ants, 2 dead ants and 1 live, right? If you combine them together, you have a kazayas. Even if you 1 dead and 1 living, they also have a kazayas. It's not a machlekes. Each one is talking about different size ant, right? The one that says even 2 or 1 combined with a living ant adds up to a kazayas, talking about the larger size ants. The one who says 9 is talking about the smaller types of ants. Oh, just in time for the next Gemara. Zug the Gemara weiter. Achel tevel or meiser rishon. The Mishnah said 2 dots bottom to Zion on days. The Mishnah says if a person eats tevel or meiser rishon. Remember, what is tevel? Anybody know what tevel is? You have produce. What do you have to do when you have produce?
You have to master.
What do you have to give?
Truma, master.
Truma. You have to give truma to a kohen. Meiser rishon you got to give to
The Levi.
meiser rishon. You have to give to the mice. You have to give to the Levi.
Talk about this yesterday.
Trumas Meiser, the Levi has to give to the Kohen from his Meiser Rish and Trumas Meiser. Then you have to give, besides for Truma and Meiser, you have to give, well we know, depending on which year of Shemitah it is, either Meiser Ani or Meiser Sheni, right? So here, the Shaila goes like this, Omar Rav, Achal Tevel Shemaiser Sheni, what if you eat from produce that you already separated Truma, you already separated Meiser Rishon, but you did not separate Meiser Ani. Shaila is there a lav, is there the same Isser, if you eat Tevel, which you already separated Truma and Meiser Rishon, but you didn't separate Meiser Ani. So Rav says Loikum. You get Malchus for eating Tevel, even if it's only Tevel from Meiser Ani. Kaman, who is Rav going like? Haitana. The Tanya, look the Braisa. Omer Rab Yosi. Rab Yosi says, Yochel lo yechayv el al Tevel. Shelo hura mimenu koliker. I would have thought that you only chayiv on Tevel if the Tevel has not been separated, not Truma, not Meiser Rishon, not Meiser Ani. That's what I would have thought. That's the only time you chayiv Malchus on Tevel. Hura men Truma Gdoila, Velur men Meiser Rishon, or Meiser Rishon or Meiser Sheni. Vafilo Meiser Ani menayin. How do I know if you're missing 1 Meiser? You already did Truma, you already did Meiser Rishon. You're just missing Meiser Ani. How do I know it's the same Isser and you get Malchus? Talmud Loimar, Loisucha lechol b'sherecho. It says in the pasuk Loisucha lechol b'sherecho, la'alon noimer v'achol b'sherecho v'seveyu, ma la'alon Meiser Ani, avkam Meiser Ani, Zgzer Shova, that even if you're missing Meiser Ani, you're still over on the Isser of Tevel. You're still over the Isser of Tevel. V'amar Rachmanam, Loisucha. Omer Rav Yosef Ketanoi. Really, this is a machlokes tanaim. It's not so simple. We find this machlokes in Mishnah and Pei. Rav Eliezer Mitzrach Likas Hashem Meiser Ani Shal Demai. Everybody knows what Demai is, right? What's Demai? Demai. What is Demai? Demai is from an Amoritz. You buy produce from Amoritz. Why is it called Demai? Because Domai. You're not sure what it is, right? You're not sure if you can rely on Amoritz that he separated, Truma or not, right? Could be it's Tevel. So here, the halacha is when you buy meiser, when you buy produce from Amoritz, by the way, you know who instituted Demai, right? Who was the one who instituted Demai?
That's in Saita. The last daf in Saita.
Well, what does the Gemara say? Zichru? Which daf? Last daf?
It was the last daf.
Yeah.
Who was it? Who was it?
I believe it was Yochanan Kohen Gadol.
You're probably right.
Yeah. Yochanan Kohen Gadol. B'meimat Asiyov and Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Yochanan Kohen Gadol, right? By Sheni, story of Chanukah. He was the one who instituted Demai. He said that if you buy from Amoritz, Amoratzim are not careful in Meiser, you have to double down and make sure to give Meiser if you buy from Amoritz.
They're not
Not careful, yeah, not careful. Tumat tahara also. Tumat tahara is another, yeah, another halacha, right? So you're not allowed to eat by an amoritz, right?
Exactly. Not truma,
Yeah, it's a different halacha. But here we're talking about produce. You don't have to give meiser oni. You have to give truma and meiser rishon, but not meiser oni. The Chachamim say no. You still have to give meiser oni as well if you buy produce from amoritz. Kairos Hashem. You don't have to give it mamish. You just kairos Hashem. You basically say, what does kairos Hashem mean? You designate it. You designate it in your pile. You say, the left corner in my pile should be meiser oni. But you do not have to separate it and give it to an ani. That you don't have to do. That far you don't have to go. My love, what's the machlekes? Masovar says that if you have vadai tevel, in other words, you didn't separate meiser ani from produce, vadai you didn't separate it, then it's tevel. So if it has a loch of tevel, so if you have a suffix, you buy it from an amoritz, you have to give it. Even if you're certain that you didn't give meiser ani, it doesn't become tevel. It's not subject to the isser tevel. It's only meiser ani, and therefore, if it's a suffix, if you buy it from a amoritz, we're not mechayiv you to separate. If the machlekes is even by a vadai, whether it becomes tevel or not, if you don't give meiser ani, whether it's tevel, so why are they arguing by a amoritz and a suffix? You might as well have the same argument in a case of a vadai, right? You have a pile of produce and you vadai did not give meiser ani. Question: is it tevel or not? Machlekes. Why are you arguing in a case of a suffix? You might as well argue in a case of a vadai if that is the source. I don't want to say crux anymore, but if that is the yisoid of their machlekes. Ela de kulam avade toivlei. Must be referred to yesterday's shiur if you don't get the joke. Everybody holds that meiser ani. If you don't give meiser ani, even if you give truma, meiser rishon, but if you don't give meiser ani, it's tevel. People say, one person says, who's that? Rebbe Lazar says, you don't have to be mafresh meiser ani from Demai because Amaoretz probably gave meiser ani. Kiven the mamainahu afrisha mafresh. Since it's only money, then he is mafresh. He's mafresh the meiser ani, right? Because it's money of the poor, but he can keep it. There's no isser to keep it. It's not like it belongs to the kohen or anybody. So that he's mafresh it, but he keeps it for himself. No, since it's trichle milsa, it's he doesn't do that either. He doesn't separate it either. So everybody holds really. So in other words, it's not really subject to machlokes. Everybody holds that if you have produce and you weren't mafresh meiser ani, even though you gave truma and meiser rishon, it's still called tevel, and you're over on a lav if you eat it. Okay, so now the Gemara asks kamu yoichlem and tevel. How much does he have to eat from tevel to be chayiv malchus? We saw machlokes of Shimon and the Rabbanon in our Mishnah, right? Whether it's a koshu or a kazayas. Omer of Bibi Omer Shimon ben Lakish machlokes bechita. When do they argue whether you need a kol shehu or a kazayas that's only by a kernel of wheat? Why? Because a kernel of wheat you don't need a kazayas. You know why? Because it's kibriyasa. It's a natural state, right? That's the way it grows. So it's a whole piece. So as long as you have a whole piece, which is natural, and the way it grows, kibriyasa, then you don't need a kazayas. You're chayiv even on less than a kazayas. Aval bekemach, once you grind it into flour, so there you have to eat a kazayas from tevel in order to be chayiv malchus. There are kol kazayas. Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Shimon, Melakish, machlokes bezu, kach machlokes bezu. No, it's machlokes also by kemach. No difference whether it's chita or kemach. By both, machlokes whether you need to eat a kazayas of tevel to be chayiv malchus or even a kolshu. Tanan, Rabbi Shimon yatamoidim liba oichel nemola kolshu. Shu chayiv. Rabbi Shimon argues in the Rabbanan and says that even a kolshu is mechayiv you malchus. So he says, aren't you moida by an ant that even if you eat a kolshu of an ant, you're chayiv? So why aren't you moida also by tevel? I'm moida by an ant because that is a whole creature. So even if it's less than a kazayas, it's a whole creature. That's why you chayiv. So he said to them, but a chita is also kibriyasa, right? It's a whole piece. It's a whole piece of grain. Where it says chita en kemach loy. So my vaistois, there Shimon who argues in the Rabbanan and says you're chayiv in a kolshu by tevel. It's only by chita because chita is kibriyasa. By flour, he also requires a kazayas. Gemara says, no, you don't have a raya from there. He's arguing, he's saying, according to you, at least be moida by yechita that a kosher should be enough. Lididi, according to me, I feel kamechnami. Even flour, you don't need a kazayas. Even a kosher is chayiv malchus by tevel. Elo didchu, but according to you, that you say by a nemola, a kosher is enough to be in chayiv malchus. Chita should be the same. That it's also in its natural state, it's a whole piece, and therefore at least be moida there that you're chayiv malchus on a chita, even if it's less than a kazayas. Rabbanon say, huh? V'Rabbanan brias neshama chashuva, chita loy chashuva. By sheretz, by nemola, you have a neshama. I didn't know a nemola has a neshama. Yeah, nemola. It's interesting. It's a nefesh called a neshama over here. Brias neshama. Yeah, it's a brias neshama. Okay, so therefore it's chashuv, and therefore you're chayiv even a kosher. Chita loy chashuva. It's not, even though it's a whole piece in its natural state, doesn't have an neshama infused in it. It's not a living creature, and therefore you're not chayiv unless you eat a kazayas. Tying said there, Yirmiyah, Shimon Omer Kol Shel Makkos, the Amr kazayas elo le'inyan carbon. Shimon says there are Kol Shel for Makkos and the Amr kazayas elo le'inyan carbon. So basically, Reb Shimon holds across the board, if you eat a Kol Shel of tevel, whether it's chita, whether it's kemach, flour, or a grain, you're always chayiv on a Kol Shel. And the only time you need a kazayas is when we're talking about le'inyan karbonos. That is the end of this module. Okay, weiter the Mishnah. Let's go weiter in Shas. So oichel bikurim. Okay, what are bikurim? Bikurim every year you have to bring the first of your produce to the Beis Hamikdash. Who gets it? Who gets bikurim? One of the Matnaskuna, right? The kohen gets bikurim. The kohen gets to eat it. Now there's a process, right? We just did the Haggadah, right? The whole Haggadah is based on the parsha of bikurim. Arami Ovidavi is in what parsha? Parsha's Kisava, parsha of bikurim, and before the Bailam reads the parsha of Bikurim, the guy who brings the Bikurim has to read that parsha, and this mizvada, it's called vidoy. Interesting that that's called vidoy, even though he's not mizvada on avoinus, he's mizvada on zechuyas. He says, right? What does he say? The words are bi'arti hakodesh min habayis lo yichalti mimenu b'tomei. Right? Yeah, he says all good stuff. It's called vidoy. Either way, before the Bailam eats, before the Bailam is mizvada and lanes the parsha, the kohen is not allowed to eat it. So look the Mishnah, oichel bikurim. What if a kohen eats bikurim actually kar alein before the owner who brings it had a chance to read the parsha of bikurim? The halacha is he would get malchus. The kohen is not allowed to eat bikurim before you read the parsha. Kachi kodeshim chutz lekloim. What if you eat kachi kodeshim? What are kachi kodeshim? What kind of karbonis fall into the category of kachi kodeshim? Right? You have oila, achatas, and asham. Right, Kachi Kodeshim have unique halachas. For example, right, oila is consumed completely. Bechatas and Osham is consumed partly on the Mizbeach, but the other part is only Nachal l'Kahanim. Bailam is not allowed to eat it. Right, Kahanim oichlim, or Bailam is kaprim. That's Kachi Kodeshim. The other halacha by Kachi Kodeshim is it can only be eaten by Kahanim inside the Azara. Can't take it outside the Azara. Now what happens, Kachi Kodeshim chutz l'kloim, the Kohen takes it outside the Azara, eats it outside, or Kachim Kalim, Umaiser Sheni, what are Kachim Kalim? What kind of karbonis are Kachim Kalim? Pesach, or Toida, or Shlomim. What's the halacha with those karbonis? Those karbonis, the Bailam gets to eat them too, right? The Bailam, the owner brings it, shechts it, the Kohen shechts it, Zoyuk the dam of the Mizbeach, and part of the carbon goes in the Mizbeach, and the Bailam gets to eat, and Ochlim Yerushalayim, B'choyma, B'toich HaChoyma. What if you eat it chutz l'choyma? Malchus. Why is it called Pesach HaTorah, the pure Pesach? Because they're two Pesach Sheni, Pesach Tomei, right? So if somebody breaks a bone, could you imagine how careful you have to be the times of Beis Hamikdash? Right? Don't break the bone, right? You have bones.
These shepses were
so small.
The size of a cat.
Size of a cat.
Yeah, because they're less than a year old.
Wow.
לא נכון.
Yes.
A year old is big. What are you talking? A year old.
Less than a year old.
Less than a year old.
Less than a year old.
All right, pull up the picture on the screen. Let's go. How big are they? Yeah. When he goes to Stefanski style.
How big?
Okay.
How big? How old does it have to be?
What's the size of a calf that's a sheep? A sheep.
Non-GMO.
Non-GMO.
It's like 12 to 18 pounds.
No.
40 pounds. 40 pounds? I mean, baby ones. Like the baby ones. Between 8 and 12 pounds, it says.
8 and 12 pounds.
8 and 12 pounds. That's small. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, let's get a picture here.
Let's go. So,
Tiny.
a shiur is etzem
What?
No, I had a better picture.
between 8 and 12 pounds.
Someone holding.
That's what we should do, right?
Less than a year old, yeah.
A less than a year old. I want to hear. You want to hear? A less than a year old. Who said 12 pounds? He told 68, 9 kilograms. What are you talking?
That's tiny.
Yeah.
Machlokes Chat GPT and Google. Okay, let's go weiter. How big is a Korban Pesach?
Like I know exactly
69
how
kilograms. 152
100 pounds?
152 pounds.
9 kilograms.
Again, non-GMO. They force feed them these days.
Oh, that's what it is.
Back in the day, everything was like.
Okay.
Wait, guys.
Yeah.
Listen.
Because twice says you have to invite other people.
Yes, yeah.
So what are you
Well, you have to sign up on the list to eat from the Korban Pesach, right?
Why would you get other people? 81 kilos. It's so small.
12 pounds
Right.
is a lot of meat.
Remember,
12 pounds after the
Each one has to have a kazayas. There has to be enough for each one for kazayas. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, you take out the head, you take out the bones, you don't have, it's not 12 pounds, it's 6 pounds, so it's not a lot.
I see what you're saying.
People eat a hamburger, that's what.
Okay.
I used to
Making
raise
6-pound
them.
brisket, feeding a family of 10.
Rab Shol used to raise them. Yeah. Okay.
There it is.
Okay, weiter. Yeah.
Got a picture up.
Oh, here we go. We got a photo right here. Okay, yeah, it's 100 pounds. Yeah. All right. Hashoiver es etzem bepesach hator. So I guess you don't have to be that careful, doctor, because they're big bones probably. Okay. Hareza likar bom. You get malchus. Aval amoiser bator. Somebody who leaves over. Right. The pesach has to be eaten. Imagine if it's 100 pounds. It's a lot of meat. You got to eat it before dawn, before the morning. You have to eat it. Hashoiver batome. And somebody breaks a bone from pesach sheni. Ain't a likar bom because the halacha. Rab Shol. Hashoiver batome. Rab Shol. Vashoiver batome, somebody breaks the bone from Pesach Sheni, ain't a loikar boim, there you don't get malchus. Weiter, hanoitel emelabonim, somebody who, again, somebody called me before Pesach, they said to me, I had a nest in the back of my house, and all of us did shiluach hakan because the mother bird kept coming back, and I told over the story, and Reb Daniel publicized it, the story of my shidduch with the shiluach hakan. I had so many people, he has such a wide reach, I had so many people texting me, can we do shiluach hakan on your nest, within the week, but I was away in Atlanta, so I told them, I said, I'll come back and you come to my backyard and you do shluch hakam. By the time I got back, the eggs hatched, right? And now they're little chicklets. The mother bird is gone. So that's what it is. But either way, l'sikach, it says, hanoitel emel abonim. Torah says, don't take the mother with the children. If a guy is over on that lav, Rabbi Yudah Meloiki gets malchus ve'ein b'shalech. He doesn't get a chance to rectify, to repair that lav if the mother bird comes, or by sending the mother bird away.
You took it and you put the eggs back? That's what you did?
I was kind of the eggs, put it back, the mother bird came back. And did it again. And the Gemara Chulin says, "Shaleach to shalach afilu me'apam." Even 100 times you can do it. So I didn't do it myself twice. I just wanted to be mizak other people with a mitzvah. Okay.
Came back.
Yeah, the mother bird comes by certain species. The mother bird comes back. Yeah, it keeps coming back. And by the way, some species the mother bird only sits at night. Okay, we'll get into it a different time. But this specific, some birds, the father sits during the day. The mother bird sits at night. So you have to do it only at night because it has to be. So some birds, the mother bird sits the entire time.
As the other bird.
What's it called?
A finch.
Which one?
An American finch.
Not a picture.
It doesn't have a messiah. It's not a kosher bird to eat, but it's kosher al pi halacha. It's a kosher bird, but you don't eat it. Okay. That if you violate, if you are over on the lav of the sikach emel abanim, then what could you do afterwards to rectify the lav? Shaleich to shalach, you send it away. It's a lav and itiklasei. This is the general rule. Kol mitzvahs loiser b'Torah. Kol mitzvahs loiser that any lav in the Torah sheyesh b'kum asei that has an asei that's attached to it, that's contingent on it. In chayavin aleh, you don't get malchus on the lav because you could still rectify the lav by afterward fulfilling the asei. And shiluach hakan is one of them. If you take the mother bird together with the kids, with the eggs or with the chicklets, then you can rectify it by sending the mother bird away afterwards. According to Chum, you don't get malchus. Our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Akiva. Which halacha in the Mishnah specifically? That if a kohen eats bikurim before the owner read the parsha of bikurim, the Mishnah doesn't get malchus. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan says that's Rabbi Akiva. Bikurim hanocha ma'akevas behen. It's not true. Hanocha, to put it down in front of the kohen, that's ma'akev, right? In front of the mizbeach, that's ma'akev. Hanicha l'fnei Hashem. But kriya ain't ma'akevas behen. If the bailam, the owner, didn't read the parsha, that's not ma'akev. And when the kohen eats it without the bailam reading the parsha, he does not get malchus. So this is only Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva also get malchus in such a case, not the Chachamim. Asks the Gemara, why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan say that our Mishnah is Reb Shimon? Why would he say Rabbi Akiva? Now, Reb Shimon is Mefurisha Brisa. We'll see in a minute. Reb Shimon is Mefurisha in another Brisa that he holds like that. Reb Akiva, we don't find anywhere Reb Akiva holds like that. So why would Reb Yochanan choose to establish our Mishnah like Reb Akiva, who's unknown with regard to this opinion, and ignore Reb Shimon, who is Mefurisha Brisa? Says the Gemara, Hakamashman Reb Akiva Reb Shimon Svir Lei. No, Reb Yochanan wants to tell you, Reb Shimon was a Talmud. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was a Talmud of Reb Akiva, and we know Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Reb Shimon holds that Kriya Ma'akiv, that if the Kohen eats the Bikurim before the owner reads the parsha, you get Malkus. We don't know Reb Akiva holds like that. So he's Mechadish to us, Reb Akiva, Reb Shimon Svirle. My Reb Shimon, where is this famous Reb Shimon who holds that if a Kohen eats Bikurim before the owner read the parsha, that he's Chayiv Malkus? The Tanya. We learned the Brayse, Trumas Yat Chayil Bikurim. The Pasuk says that, it's a whole Pasuk, if you have the Pasuk on the side of the Gemara, it could be very helpful. On the side of the Gemara brings the Pasuk, Lesucha Lechel B'Shirecha. It gives a whole list of what you cannot eat, B'Sharecha. Yeah?
Where's the pasuk?
The pasuk is Devarim Yud Beis, pasuk Yud Zayin. So you see a whole list. Meiser, Degoncha, Tiroshche, Tzerecha, and the last words in that pasuk is Trumas Yodecha. What's Trumas Yodecha? What's it referring to? Yeah? So the Gemara says Elu Bikurim. It's referring to Bikurim. So Rabbi Shimon said, Ma Bozel Lamdeinu. What is this pasuk coming to teach us? Im lo eichlan chutz l'chaymam. If you're trying to tell me you're not allowed to eat it outside of Yerushalayim, I don't need a pasuk for that. You know why? Kal v'chaymer me meiser. Hakal. I can learn it from a kal v'chaymer from meiser, which is a lot more kal. Why? Oma meiser akal. Oichlan chutz l'chaymer. Loike. If meiser, right? We're talking about meiser sheni. Meiser sheni has to be eaten inside the chaymes Yerushalayim. If somebody takes out meiser sheni outside of Yerushalayim, he gets malchus. Meiser is more kal than bikurim. We'll see soon why. So if Meiser you get Malkus if you eat outside of Yerushalayim, Kal v'chaymer Bikurim you get Malkus if you eat outside of Yerushalayim. So I don't need a pasuk for that. So what's the pasuk coming to teach us? So Gemara says, the Chiddush by Bikurim must be the Torah is telling me, says Reb Shimon, that if you read, that if the Kohen eats Bikurim before the owner has a chance to read the parsha, that he's like the other item mentioned in that pasuk is nidvasecha. What is nidvasecha referring to? Zutay de shlamim. Talk about a carbon toid and a carbon shlamim. Reb Shimon, the same conversation. Ma bazel lamdeinu. What's this coming to teach us? If you try to tell me you're not allowed to eat kachim kalim, toid and shlamim, outside of Chavis Yerushalayim, outside of Yerushalayim, I don't need a pasuk for that. Kavachaymer memaiser. Why I have the same kavachaymer of from Meiser. Meiser is more kal, and you get malchus, kal v'chaymer, toid and shlamim. So what's it coming to teach us? You're not allowed to eat, the bailam cannot eat from carbon toid or carbon shlamim before the kohen has a chance to be zoyrek the dam on the mizbeach. And if the bailam eats it, then he gets malchus. And the other item in that pasuk is b'chayros. Zeh b'char. Right? B'char is what's b'char? B'char is the firstborn from a mother animal, Peter Rechem. So who's it go to? It goes to the kohen. Reb Shimon, ma bazel lamdeinu. What's this coming to teach us? Im lo'eichlan chutz l'chayma, that a kohen is not allowed to eat b'char outside of chaymas Yerushalayim. Kal v'chaymer ma'aser. Again, I have the same kal v'chaymer. Im lefnei zrika. If you're telling me that he cannot eat the b'char before he sprinkles the blood on the mizbeach, kal v'chaymer b'tay de shlama. I have a kal v'chaymer b'tay de shlama. Hala b'yakasev el lo'eichlan ma b'char. If you la'achas zrika shehu loika. It must be. It's coming to teach you that if a zar, somebody who's not a kohen, who eats from the Bechar, even after Zrikas Damim, that he gets Malkas. That's the Chiddush by Bechar. Bekarcha v'tzeinecha, zuchatas v'asham. The words bekarcha v'tzeinecha in the pasuk is referring to Katshe Kadishim, which is chatas and asham. Amar Reb Shimon, ma bazel lamdeinu. What's this coming to teach us? Im lo'eichlan chutz l'chayma. If you're telling me you're not allowed to eat chatas and asham outside of Yerushalayim, kal v'chaymer memaiser. I have the same kal v'chaymer from meiser. Im lefnei zrika. If you tell me I'm not allowed to eat it before zrika's dam, before the kohen sprinkles the blood on the mizbeach, kal v'chaymer b'tay de shlamim. I have a kal v'chaymer b'tay de shlamim. Im la'achar zrika. If you're telling me I can't eat it after Zrika's dam kavachayim bechar, I can learn that from bechar. Allah ba'akasav el oichel mechatas v'asham afilu la'acha Zrika chutz lekloim shulaika. That if a kohen eats from a carbon chatas and an asham, even after he sprinkles the blood, but he eats it outside of the azara, that he gets malchus. The derecha zu oila, and then the final item on that list in that pasuk is nederecha, which is referring to oila, right? Oila is the carbon that gets completely consumed on the zbeach. Amr Reb Shimon, ma bozel lamdeinu. What's this coming to teach us? Im lo'eichlan chutz l'chayma, have kavachayim meiser. Im lefnei zrika kavachayim b'tay de shlamim. Im la'achas zrika kavachayim b'char. Im chutz l'kloim kavachayim b'chatz v'asham. V'lo ba'akasav elo. What's it coming to teach us? Elo to what it's coming to teach us, that anyone who eats, even inside the Azara, after Zrikas Dam, a guy takes a bite out of the meat of an oila, he gets malchus, because oila is supposed to go completely to Hashem. Oila is kolol HaMizbeach, it gets consumed on the Mizbeach completely. So this is the way Reb Shimon darshans this pasuk, an incredible drasha, kavachomers, each one is coming to teach us a different chiddush. Amar Rava, so Rava said, and this is incredible, Reb Shimon is amazing. Dialide ime, any mother that gives birth, take a look at this compliment. Rava's compliment to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He says, any mother gives birth, ki Reb Shimon Talid, should give birth to a child like Reb Shimon. Right? Give birth to a child like Reb Shimon. All the stories in Meiron where couples went at a child in Schus of Reb Shimon, they named Reb Shimon, right? You give a child like Reb Shimon. The Eloi Talid. And if not, better not to give birth. This is amazing. I saw on the bottom over here, what does it mean, better not to give birth? If you don't, it means it's better we weren't all born. I mean, like nobody's like Reb Shimon, right? So what does that mean? So over here on the bottom, he brings down that the Tva says, don't be goyrus. We shouldn't be goyrus, this part of Rava's compliment. Your goyrus, the bracha. Every mother that gives birth should be blessed to give birth to a child like Reb Shimon. But Avada, if she doesn't, I mean, nobody's in the level of Reb Shimon, Avada should still give birth and Mazel Tov, yeah? So that's the compliment of Rava. So the Gemara says, it's still, Rava, it's almost like, when you give somebody a compliment before you criticize them? Like, listen, it was a really great shiur, but I want to just tell you, you could use a little more stories. Like, it's like, like you give somebody the compliment just to like soften the blow. Here it sounds like Rav is doing that. Rav is telling Reb Shimon, every mother, he's talking about Reb Shimon, every mother should give a child to Reb Shimon, but Avagav de Islu Pirch, even though I have a kash on everything you just said. Okay? I don't like any other drashas. Why? Because what's the chumrah? My chumrah the bikurim and meiser. Why do your whole kal v'chomer is based on the assumption that bikurim is more chomer than meiser. Right? Meiser is the most kal, and bikurim is learned from meiser that if meiser gets malchus, if you eat outside of Yerushalayim, kolshkin bikurim. Gemara says it's not true. Why do you assume that meiser is more kal? Because shekain meichum the bikurim meiser shekain asurim lazarim. Because bikurim only kahanim can eat, and meiser everybody can eat. Adirabba meiser chomer. You know why meiser is chomer? Shekain asur la'oinen. Somebody who, one of his shiva kravim, lost one of his relatives, one of the 7 relatives, he's not allowed to eat meiser. He's not allowed to eat meiser. Right? But bikurim, also like his mamash first pasuk, you're not allowed to eat ba'oinen. It's a drasha, but you're not allowed to eat, oinen is not allowed to eat meiser. But bikurim, he's allowed to eat bikurim. So you see there's a tzad chomer that of meiser the bikurim doesn't have. So how could you say, I'll learn bikurim from a kal v'chomer from meiser, because meiser is more kal? It's not true. Meiser might be more kal in the sense that everybody could eat it, the bikurim only kahanim could eat, but there's a tzad chomer that meiser has, the bikurim doesn't have. Meiser, oinen is not allowed to eat, and bikurim, oinen is allowed to eat. So you can't use a kal v'chomer there, because you see that meiser has a tzad chomer. So my chumra, the toide shlomim, and the other kal v'chomer, the Reb Shimon darshans, what do you say? Toide shlomim as a chumra, it's more chomer from meiser, she came to unen matan domin, the emurim lagabim mizbeach. Right, because toide shlomim is a carbon. So by carbon, what do you have to do? Right, you shecht it, and you need zrika, and you also have to take the emurin and put it on the mizbeach. Bikurim is not a carbon. Right, you don't. Mizbeach doesn't get any part of that process. It's not part of the process. So you see that toide shlomim is more chomer from meiser. Gemara says adrabah, meiser chomer. Still, meiser is more chomer. She came to unen kesef tzura. The way you redeem kedushas meiser, the Torah says v'tzarta kesef biyudecha. You can transfer the kedusha of meiser onto money, and you can put it onto the money. Right? Let's say you have apples, right? And you live in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. You're not going to Yerushalayim for another 3 years. By the time you get there, the apples are going to rot, right? And the apples can only be eaten in Yerushalayim. But you want to save the apples, so what do? You redeem the kedusha of the apples and you put it onto money. Transfer the kedusha, and the money you could keep in your safe until you get to Yerushalayim. You get to Yerushalayim, you buy fruits over there, and that's how you eat it in Yerushalayim. But the point is that the money, there has to be a very specific type of money. It has to be the $200, the Trump dollar bill. It can't be just any money. It has to be tzurat matbeya. Yeah? So it has to be that kind of, So here, you have a chumrah. Shit came to unikaz atzura. A my chumrah the bechar metoid shlamim. And what do you assume that bechar is more chumrah from toid shlamim? Shkein kedushasei merechem, because bechar is kaddish from its inception. Toid shlamim is only once, right? It's not born kaddish. You have to make it kaddish with your mouth. You have to magdish it. Adarabba toidish shlamim chamurim shkein tu nesmicha nesachim and tuvas chazei b'shoik. There's a tzad chamur by toidish shlamim that is more chamur than bechor because it needs this whole process of smicha nesachim tuvas chazei b'shoik. Umaychor met chatz v'oshim bechor shkein kachik kodeshim. You're going to tell me chatz v'oshim is kachik kodeshim, bechor is kachim kalim. Adarabba bechor chamur. There's a tzad chamur that bechor has shkein kedushasim erechem. Umaychor met oilam chatz v'oshim. Basically, he's debunking the whole myth that each one is kal and the other one is chamur. He's proving it the other way around.
He's debunking all the kal v'chomer.
All the kal v'chomers. What did Reb Shimon say? You have a kal v'chomer oila, which is more chomer from chatas v'osham. Why? Because oila shekain kolol, it gets completely consumed in the mizbeach. Adarabba, chatas v'osham chamiri. Chatas v'osham is more chomer. You know why? Shekain mechapri. Because chatas v'osham have the power to atone for averis. Oila doesn't really have the power to atone for averis. What is an oila? An oila is, it doesn't come for averis, not really, even though Rashi says machshava, yeah.
Different types of oilas, right?
אבל אף אחד לא יודע, nobody
There's
knows.
a whole list of
A list of oilas.
yes, the whole list.
There's an oila that you're mechuyev to bring for averis.
Ola Nedava.
Right, right.
זה לא הברח.
But there's an oila that's a carbon chayva, other than,
לא, רק
I
הקדוש
don't-
ברוך הוא יודע. only הקדוש ברוך הוא knows.
yeah, it's not mechaper. Oilas, okay, here the Gemara sounds like it's not really mechaper, that's not the oomph of an oila. And memela chatas v'osham are more chamer because they're mechaper. V'kulu chamir me'oila. And really, Gemara says, I have a tzad chomer that all the karbonos are actually more chomer than an oila. Even though oila is completely consumed on the mizbeach, I have a tzad chomer by all the other karbonos. You know why? The izbu shtei achilos, because all the other karbonos, they're two different entities consuming the carbon. One, let's say by kachim kodeshim, the kahanim have to eat it, and part goes on the mizbeach. By kachim kalim, the bailam eat it, and part goes on the mizbeach. So you have a few entities consuming the carbon, which is presumably a tzad chomer. But by oila, the whole hakol olam mizbeach, that compared to, if it necessitates two entities to eat or consume the oil or the carbon, that is a tzad chomer according to this Gemara, according to Rava. So the Gemara says, wow, you're debunking Reb Shimon's entire brisa, all the kal v'chomers, and you still give him a compliment? Well, you're just trying to soften the blow? That doesn't sound honest. Elamadi lida imik Reb Shimon, so why are you giving him a compliment? You've basically taken apart all the drashas and all the kal v'chomers he just gave us, and you complimented nevertheless. Says the Gemara, no. I'll tell you why I complimented him. Rava says, "Dilamai desvirele ledidei mesaris lekra v'darish le." He just admired the way Reb Shimon went about to darshan all these kal v'chomers. In order to darshan the kal v'chomers, you cannot darshan the kal v'chomers if you take the pasuk at face value. You have to be mesaris. You have to reorganize the words in the pasuk in a certain way for the kal v'chomers to work. We're not going to get involved in exactly the mechanics, but that's what Rav is saying. If you look at Reb Shimon carefully, what he did was, he did a brilliant move. He reorganized the words in the pasuk to be able to work out all these kal v'chomers for this entire drasha to work. And that genius, I'm like, wow! Any mother has a child should give birth to a child like Reb Shimon for his incredible genius and ability to darshan psukim. Okay, we'll stop over here. Mirz Hashem.
Wow.
Tomorrow, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that, that it's Reb Shimon who says that Oichel Bekurim before Kriyas HaParsha that you get Malkus with all those drashas. Tomorrow, no shiur, even though Daf Yomi never sleeps. On Shabbos, we make up for Friday, even though it's not ideal. Yeah, and you're in Pico. You're coming from Pico every night, right?